Federer was on the Serve podcast. Here's what he said about slowed down courts on tour. Roddick basically said, "Do you think courts should be sped up?" Federer gave an emphatic yes, and then went into this answer.
We need to fix it. We need to have not only fast court, but what we would want to see is Alcaraz or Sinner figure it out on
Correct.
on lightning fast, and then have the same match on super slow and see how that matches up. And that's how the ranking points used to be. Remember, back in the day, only 12 tournaments counted, so everybody would play on their favorite surface.
They would stack their services.
Yeah, and then they would sometimes meet. And those were the best matches, when you had the attacker against the retriever. And now everybody plays similar. It's because the tournament directors have allowed, with the ball speed and the court speed, that every week is basically the same. And that's why you can just go from winning, I don't know, French, Wimbledon, US Open, and just play the same way.
You mean like he did sometimes? Like the year he got to all four major finals and won, and won two of them and lost the others in 5 sets, like in '09.
Right. Now, it's unclear exactly what period of time Roger is saying this started in, but from my POV, like Wimbledon got slow starting in 2005, right? Pretty early on.
I would back
Oh,
it. I
back
would go
back a
to,
couple
I would
years.
go to '02. I would go to '02, the year Nalbandian and Hewitt met in the final. No one
Ah,
served.
there
That's
there you
that's
go.
the beginning of the Wimbledon slower court era. And you've also then got, while they don't speed up the clay had become speeder because of the Lexilon. You know, the French became about racket head speed.
They're crushing the ball. So
Right.
it's not that the clay, right? So you look at the 90s clay court rallies, and yeah, they have to play a 30-shot rally because they can't hit through the court. They don't hit big
Attrition.
enough.
It was the attrition era when guys like Bruguera and Muster were winning the French. And then once Guga comes along in '97, so the French gets faster, the grass gets slower. Yeah.
Look, I think Roger Federer hung the moon, but I think he's a little off base here. We have a good mix. Gil, you probably saw on social media Matthew Willis, Matt Rackett, he goes by,
Hmm.
posted a huge chart on court speeds, probably the last 10, 15 years, where you can track by color coding. And it's a mixed bag. It's not homogenous. So, and I happen to think that's good.
The
Yes,
Sams are closer. The Sams are closer to one another than they were before Roger ascended, and he's spoken about that. I mean, you watch that '01 round of 16 match he played versus Sampras. Between them, they were serving volleying hundreds of times.
well, I think the play styles, like where Roger is indisputably correct, is you don't have to drastically alter your play style now to win across all the surfaces. There are slight adjustments that you will see if you look at how many guys are chipping returns at Wimbledon versus driving the return at Roland Garros. How about return position? How many guys are going to the back fence at Roland Garros? They're up on the baseline at Wimbledon, right? That's different. But we do see the top players, the elite players, having success on all four because their play styles and their level of well-roundedness and their tools, they are adaptable to all the surfaces. And that's what we have now in modern tennis. But that does not mean necessarily that the surfaces are the same. Why? Because the data doesn't lie when it comes to this. And the ace rate at Wimbledon is 12%. And the ace rate at Roland Garros is 6%. You are more than twice as likely to hit an ace at Wimbledon. That means the courts are much faster. And it is such a common refrain in tennis to say they're the same. Folks, and it doesn't matter who says it. It doesn't matter if Roger Federer says it's the same. The numbers are right there. It's not.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would think that Roger would be happy that players who are all court players, in other words, they have the ability to come forward, or they have the ability to engage in extended baseline rallies, or they can chip and charge, or they can do any number of creative low slice angles, whatever. Those are the players that are at the tippy top of the game. And so it trickles down from there. So players like Taylor Fritz are starting to understand, oh, because of the different surfaces and different conditions, I am going to have to learn some of these other shots. I would think Roger would be thrilled with that.
But Roger has said, and he said he was actually in Italy for the ATP finals. I don't know if it was last year, if it was the year before, and he was asked about the conditions, which are that tournament is the fastest. And
Yeah.
he said, look, I love quick conditions. I like a little serving. He said in the past, I love to watch John Isner. I love the serving. So he is just like everybody else, all the fans out there. He has a preference. Like there's a type of tennis. Now, he did say in his quote, in all fairness, they should also play on super slow. And I think we all agree the variation is so important to have. But like when Roger says, well, hard courts should be sped up universally, this does not necessarily like he has a POV. He likes a certain thing, and that should be taken into account.
Well, there's also, I think I wonder about is it just natural, the ex-player lament? I'm not playing anymore. I got to say something. And even if he does it as kindly and thoughtfully as Roger Federer does, because no one can disparage things more graciously than Roger Federer. It's amazing and it's natural. And he doesn't being highly critical. He's just kind of issuing it and a thought, but it's just I'm not playing anymore. My racket's not doing the talking. I'm saying something. It's not to be relevant, not to get in the news. It's just kind of like can't help but see it that way. I mean, maybe it's the nature of anyone who believes. And I you know, I was in Northern California where I lived for many years and walked around the college I went to, and I didn't want to, but you could see like the biological instinct is to lament instead of to automatically celebrate because lament is based on what I knew, rather than hmm, what don't I know and how am I learning from what's going on now, like the data.
It's such
That's
a
a
good
really
point,
good
but
point.
such a good point. I'll add one other thing. I obviously have commentated with a lot of former pros who had their own surface preferences as players. What I have noticed, and it cracks me up to be completely honest, despite the fact that they are in a commentary booth, they no longer have to deal with a court that's bouncing high and slow or skidding through fast and quick. The players who played well in a certain condition, they will almost always prefer to watch and commentate tennis in those conditions. There are players who, especially Americans who I've worked with, who just didn't play well on clay. They hate commentating on clay.
They're still fighting that battle. There's still that match because the thing that makes these people so compelling. They're kinesthetic. They're visceral.
Yeah.
So in their mind, it's just like you notice when you go to a slam, the people who come back of ex-players are the ones who did well. Oh yeah, he did well at Wimbledon, so he's here now. He's the clay guy, and so because otherwise they're still fighting that battle. That's so funny. They don't even like commentating on the surface that they did less well. Yeah, because it's still visceral. They still carry it with them those memories of that loss in Stuttgart or Rome and of course Paris.
You know
Well,
what I
funny.
think about? Like, if you're a former great and you have all these records, to what extent and how viscerally, obviously, you're still a competitive person, right? How viscerally do you want those records to stay?
I've talked to people about that. It
Okay.
depends on which one. There's certain ones, anyone who's won multiple slams, let's say they have like 10 records. Some it's meant to happen, it's okay. But I think they all would like to hang on to like one that's kind of like a real gem into itself. Jimmy Connors won the US Open on three surfaces. It's a pretty cool, likely unsurpassable nugget. So as long as I can hang on to that, the other stuff is going to happen. So I think 80% they can let go, and then some others it's like, let me have that precious little nougat for myself.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one that comes to mind, Andy Roddick will yell from the mountaintops that he is done being the last American to win a slam, and he can't wait until the day it's not him. But I mean that makes sense. Also, like, of course, he wants Americans to succeed, and somebody to win a major. So it's not, I mean, he is literally weaponized against the American players as how has it been so long? Andy Roddick, right? Like, so that part makes sense. Just one other thing before we wrap up. There have been a lot of hard courts that I can think of in the last few years that actually have been sped up. The Paris Masters sped up recently. The US Open compared to the mid to late 2010s sped up. Indian Wells this year intentionally sped up. I cannot really think of any courts that have been intentionally slowed down.
Laver Cup. The one that Roger has some dominion over.
By the way, though, I would bet my house, if I had a house, that Laver Cup will be way faster next year.